The deluded narcissist and his duped wife. The narcissist operates in their own world, which invariably bleeds into your own. But there are many things within the narcissist's world that they do not see in the same way that you do, because of the narcissist's lens that filters through the necessity of control, perceiving threats to control where they wouldn't ordinarily exist, needing to nullify threats to control, to continue to assert control, seeking out those opportunities for the acquisition of fuel, all for the majority of narcissists going on in the background as they're unaware of what they are. Many lesser and mid-range narcissists are deluded. They believe that they're better than they are, cleverer than they are, better looking than they actually are, more effective than they actually are. They believe that they didn't do things. They believe that they did do certain things that didn't actually occur. The narcissist also often looks to rope at least one other person into that delusion, usually the intimate partner primary source. But friends and colleagues can also find themselves drawn towards the narcissist delusion, either as part of supporting the narcissist or as propagating the delusion in some way. I now turn to an article that appeared in the Times concerning a former Member of Parliament called David Warburton. Of himself, he's relatively unremarkable, save that he provides me with an excellent opportunity to demonstrate the repeated delusions that he engages in as a narcissist and the various manipulations, but also how his wife has been caught up in all of this and has been involved in supporting his delusion. I was also moved to make this particular video because as I perused the comments section to it, I saw time and time again the exasperation and frustration of readers at dealing with another dodgy politician. Repeatedly, people would ask, what is it about politicians that causes them to behave in such a way? Why is it that always politicians cause such problems? And of course, they're in essence looking in the wrong place. The reason that Mr. Warburton and so many before him and so many after him engage in corruption, criminality, immoral behaviours, contradictions, self-absorption, self-enrichment and so forth, is not because they're MPs. Not every MP behaves this way. Not because they're a politician, but because they're a narcissist. Now, there are individuals, of course, that within a particular heady environment, the environment influences them to behave in a particular way. But the narcissist takes advantage of that environment. And politics, as I've explained before, is an environment that attracts many narcissists for two reasons. The excellence at which it provides the prime aims, and in order to survive there, because there are so many narcissists drawn to it because of the first point that I've just made, it invariably is the case that you need to be a narcissist to survive the environment anyway. And thus, it perpetuates an environment being filled with narcissists, and therefore narcissists are really only the ones that can flourish and survive in such an environment. It also means that certain individuals who may well go there with good intentions become tainted as they fall prey to their own reduction of emotional empathy. But narcissists are drawn to political environments because the wielding of political power in whatever form it takes enables the assertion of control and the nullification of threats to control. It's a huge place that allows access to so much fuel by virtue of being well known, that people fawn over you, that people want to know you. It allows, through the very varied instances of individuals that are found there from all different walks of life, the opportunity for character trait acquisition, and it provides access to lots of other people also. And finally, there are the residual benefits. It allows facade management, it allows access to networks, it can allow access to money and lucrative careers thereafter based off the back of a political career. And therefore, the environment caters to the prime aims to such a degree that it's almost irresistible to a narcissist to become involved in politics. Accordingly, when people scratch their heads and think, why is it that we get politics of this nature and politicians who behave in this fashion? It's because of the narcissists that are attracted. Mr. Warburton, a backbench Tory MP for Somerton and Frome, was pictured sat in a dimly lit room, and beside him a baking tray containing 4 lines of white powder resembling cocaine. According to the young woman he visited in the early hours of February the 1st last year, Warburton, then aged 56, a married father of 2, snorted line after line of the substance, accompanied by a tumbler of Japanese whiskey on the rocks. First of all, questionable what's he doing with a young woman when he's married, and also an MP snorting cocaine, engaging in a criminal act. He then allegedly refused to leave, following the woman into bed and stripping naked before grinding himself against her. Lack of emotional empathy, lack of boundary recognition, sense of entitlement. Warburton denies this claim. Denial, first line of the twin lines of the narcissistic defence. After the picture appeared in April last year, he refused to answer any questions. Denial. And admitted himself to a clinic suffering from what he described as severe shock and stress, i.e., the threat to control was so great that it caused him to play the victim and go running off to a clinic. He was suspended as an MP, threat to control, and asked to stay away from Westminster, threat to control. Now, in a series of extraordinary interviews, he has admitted taking the drug, therefore, first of all, he denies it and now admits it, which shows that he's a contrarian. He blames the incredibly potent whiskey, blame shifting, and then suggests that he has been set up, blame shifting. Yet, despite his admission and evidence he was contacting drug dealers in the run-up to the photograph being taken, police are refusing to investigate him, arguing it is impossible to prove the powder pictured was cocaine. Warburton's departure has created another headache for Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who is facing another tricky by-election in a seat the Liberal Democrats hope to win. The saga began on April the 3rd last year, when Warburton was also accused of sexual misconduct by 2 other women and financial misconduct involving a Russian financier. He was referred to the Independent Complaints and Grievances Scheme, the parliamentary body for investigating Me Too-style complaints. After a lengthy investigation, the ICGS upheld some of the most serious charges against him. That he had coerced, manipulation, a junior female aide back to his Westminster apartment, where he subjected her to unwanted touching, including squeezing her bottom and thigh, stroking her hair and kissing her forehead, all without her consent. Sense of entitlement, lack of boundary recognition, absence of emotional empathy, physical assertion of control. This was separate to the naked groping claim made by a woman who, having never worked in Westminster, could not make a formal complaint to the ICGS. A third woman's complaint, based on her word against his, was dismissed owing to a lack of evidence. He has also been found by the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards to have taken a £150,000 loan from a Moscow-born banker and admitted failing to register a pre-election donation from a billionaire friend, a potential crime. Residual benefits, lack of accountability, sense of entitlement. Despite the finding, Warburton is now painting himself as the victim. In an interview with the Mail on Sunday, he said he was leaving public life, assertion of control by withdrawal, not because he'd done anything wrong, denial, but because he had fallen foul of a sting and an unfair system bedeviled by delays, blame-shifting, victim mentality. He is appealing against the ICGS's finding, meaning an independent panel will be asked to re-adjudicate. He is supported by his wife of 21 years, Harriet, age 53, who was, until last week, also his parliamentary aide. She sat in on the interview telling the newspaper, "They shut down every way David had of defending himself. I feel the Tory party completely hung us out to dry." The only misconduct to which Warburton confessed publicly was taking cocaine, an allegation not investigated by the ICGS. He has spoken in the Commons about the appalling violence of drug gangs, but rejected claims of his hypocrisy. Clearly is a hypocrite, but denial once again. His defence? It was a one-off mistake caused by the whiskey, blame shifting, and being entrapped by the woman, blame shifting, who he claimed spoke fluent Russian. A nod to the extraordinary claim, for which no evidence has been provided, delusion, that she was in the employ of a foreign communist party. It was very late and we'd be drinking tons of incredibly potent Japanese whiskey, blame shifting, he said. His wife added, it was a setup, a honey trap. She, of course, has swallowed the Kool-Aid that he's poured in her direction. Her husband continued, we, as MPs, were always being warned to be careful of Russian infiltration, though I never took it seriously. But I was certainly set up, he says. It was about 4 a.m, and I thought she was just playing on her phone, texting someone, he explains. Notice, of course, that he's talking about the fact that he's with some mystery woman at 4 a.m, when why wasn't he at home, or at least at home with his wife? In order, of course, to explain himself, he digs a deeper hole for himself. He adds, that's when she must have taken my picture. The woman involved insists she doesn't speak a word of Russian. Still, Warburton said his chastening experience was a cautionary tale to all grandiosity and evidence the Me Too movement had gone too far. Since his interview, he has said he intends to continue campaigning on mental health and the unfair system MPs are subjected to, victim mentality. He has not ruled out a return to politics, grandiosity. He told BBC West, I'm not going to close that off. Never say never. In addition to the picture, the Sunday Times last year also published a transcript of a call in which Warburton agreed to pay £160 for 2 grams of the substance, describing the price as quite good, actually. As well as the admission in the Mail on Sunday last week, he told BBC Points West, I've admitted it. Possession of cocaine, a Class A drug, carries a prison term of up to 7 years. Warburton took the drug in London within the Metropolitan Police jurisdiction. Sadiq Khan, London mayor who oversees the force, has condemned the violence unleashed by the cocaine trade. The Met chief, Sir Mark Rowley, has made tackling drugs a priority. His predecessor, Dame Cressida Dick, said middle-class drug users had blood on their hands. Yet Scotland Yard declined to make inquiries after the picture was published, nor since he admitted the offence. A spokesman said the force had to prove to the criminal standard what the substance is or was, but that relies on having access to the substance in question. Text messages suggest the MP's use of cocaine was far from a one-off mistake. On December the 21st, 2021, he texted one of his accusers on WhatsApp saying, let's have a drink, I have whiskey and coke. A day later, he followed up with a potential time slot affirming, and yep, have some cheeky coke, obvs. Hoovering, assertion of control, criminality, lack of accountability. In February 2021, he invited himself, lack of boundary recognition, to the same woman's home saying, I'll come and share cocaine with you and leave you alone. The next morning, after allegedly groping her, lack of boundary recognition, he texted to say he was feeling weirdly kind of fine, adding, promise I won't remove all my clothes again. In March 2022, he texted the woman saying there was a one-line whip, the lowest level of urgency for MPs to vote in the Commons. He said, does your dealer do Westminster Bridge area? Have just been put on a one-line whip, so your Happy Monday has made me want to call my dealer, but he takes ages. While the women who accuse him of sexual touching and harassment have remained silent, evidence suggests Warburton, far from being a victim, may be the beneficiary of inaction by the parliamentary authorities and police. He was never investigated over his failure to declare a £25,000 payment from Sir Cameron Mackintosh, the theatre impresario and billionaire who, days before the 2019 election, deposited funds in his personal account. Residual benefit. According to the Electoral Commission, failure to declare a pre-poll donation is a police matter. When we revealed the payment, he dismissed it as an administrative error and updated his records. Warburton did face an inquiry after failing to disclose a 6-figure loan from the Seychelles Trust Fund of Roman Yuvakovsky, a financier who specialises in securing golden visas for oligarchs. He later lobbied the Financial Conduct Authority to look more favourably on Yukovsky, yet he was only asked to apologise and update his records. A separate revelation that Warburton used a forged document as part of a mortgage application, commission of fraud, and an allegation he concealed his interest in a property firm in his constituency was met with silence. He denied misconduct. Last week, Warburton's wife issued a statement on his behalf, by proxy, saying he had never contacted any drug dealer at any time in his life, although, of course, the texts show different, and his texts were designed to humour the woman whom the couple have accused of having the drug problem. Asked what he would do next, Warburton told the BBC, "It's back to business for me, I think, back to music, which I love, and writing and all sorts of other things, which I very much enjoy." That is just a snippet of the behaviour of Mr. Warburton, who shows denial, who shows various manipulative behaviours, and the fact that he's drawn his wife into the sordid behaviours. You may wonder, indeed, what is this individual? And it's clear from the repeated behaviours that he engages in that he's a stranger to the question of accountability, that he has no emotional empathy for his wife or the women that he's assaulted, that he behaves with an arrogance and a sense of entitlement, that he sees himself as the perpetual victim, unable to take accountability for his own behaviours, and repeatedly lies through revision of history. People wonder why so many politicians end up in this position. It is because it is an occupation that attracts so many narcissists. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.